Off and running on a Tuesday, the 15th of October. What's going on, Flock? Welcome inside the vault. This is your Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. Lots to get to, of course, over the next hour. I feel like we should address two things before we get into the outline. One, the Steelers just named Russell Wilson their starter for Sunday night against the Jets in a surprise move. Justin Fields has obviously led them to a 4-2 record. They're tied atop the AFC North with the Ravens, and yet they're making a quarterback change. So we can discuss more of that maybe on the back end of the show in quick hits, but that's a surprise. And then happy birthday to one of our most loyal subscribers. She seemingly never misses a lunch hour live stream, and that is Tila, friend of the show.
Happy birthday, Tila. Hope it's a great day.
Happy birthday, Tila. So Eric DeCosta and the Ravens signed a player that's been on the practice squad in recent weeks to the 53-man roster. We will begin with that from last night. John Harbaugh's press conference takeaways and notes from yesterday. Tony Romo, who called the game, of course, for CBS on Sunday in Baltimore with Jim Nantz. I thought, Sarah, and I don't think you've heard this yet.
I haven't.
He's sort of not struggled, but had to really grind over a strategy defensively for what you need and how you have to play in order to beat the Ravens offense. So I thought that was interesting.
Hey, it's one thing to write it up. It's another thing to execute it, but I'm interested in hearing what his plans would be.
For sure. Yeah. Vegas might have it best. Just somehow just allow the Ravens' fourth quarter woes to come into play. It's not even what you do. It's what they do, right? Self-inflicted wounds. The Raiders, fortunately for them, I guess, in week 2, were able to come away victorious in Baltimore. Still hard to believe after this 4-game win streak and the teams that the Ravens have beaten along the way. We'll also go on a little bit of an apology tour. The facility, the guys on Fox. Sarah, this will be news for me. So you haven't watched Romo. I haven't watched the facility, so this will be good balance here.
This time they were more sincere, much more sincere than last time.
Sincere. Yeah. That's a good word. So we'll let our audience be the judge of that coming up later on in the show. And then you yourself will go on your own apology tour as well.
Will. And hopefully it will also be sincere.
Perfect. And Davante Adams is a New York Jet. At least he's in the facility right now. They're trying to get that finalized. So listen, anybody in the Jets content creator community, Sarah, think about what their last week has been. Robert Saleh is fired. Hackett is demoted from play calling duties. Hassan Reddick's holdout and that whole contractual situation, firing the agent, hiring Drew Rosenhaus, that's all taking place. They lose last night in heartbreaking fashion to the Bills. Insane game. We'll get to that a little bit later on. And then literally a turnaround after the primetime, they signed Davante Adams. Not a bad week or so in the news cycle for Jets.
For a content creation standpoint, but inside the building, it's got to be like pulling their hair out. Yeah.
And as a fan, it's got to be an emotional roller coaster.
For sure.
A lot more stable around these parts these days. And hopefully number 91 will be a part of that as well. Defensively speaking, the Ravens signed Yannick Ngakoue to the active roster last night, according to Adam Schefter. This is a guy who is back for his second stint in Baltimore as a pass rusher. Somebody who had a season-ending injury last year and has looked pretty darn good here through a couple games. Cole tallied up his numbers from Sunday against the Commanders. He had 4 pressures, 1 sack, 1 quarterback hit, 2 hurries, and just 16 pass rush snaps were logged. And then you transcribed something that we played and shared from the Ravens Productions post-game locker room when he was awarded a game ball yesterday. On Sunday, it was awarded it, but we shared it yesterday by John Harbaugh. And the quote was kind of telling in terms of how happy he is to be here. Quote, "I'm not a real good public speaker like that, but I just want to leave you all with this. Life is short. Cherish every moment. Cherish every opportunity. I was watching you boys in week 1 versus the Chiefs, and I wanted to be there so much. So I'm just thankful and grateful for you guys bringing me back in. I love you all for real." And Sarah, as we know, if there was a third and final practice squad elevation, other teams could have started to come after this guy. And Jeff Zaribek was all over that today. He actually reported that there was only, as we know, 1 practice squad elevation left for him. And teams started inquiring about signing him off of the practice squad as early as last week. And that was before some of the production that he showed on Sunday. So he
was sitting on the couch for quite some time. As soon as the Ravens, it's one of those things, Bobby, where like, there's a guy out there, or for you, there's a girl out there, you're like, she's cool, but I'll pass. But as soon as like one of the popular kids shows interest in said guy or girl, then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, yeah, they do look better than I thought. Let's give now I want to date them. You know what I mean? It's like, nah. The Ravens got him first. And based off of the quote of yesterday that you just shared, yeah, he wanted to be here too.
Safely on Baltimore's 53-man roster is basically where things are at right now. And hey, ramp them up a little bit. Clearly been on a little bit of a pitch count here in recent weeks, but after that first stint, really kind of widely regarded, at least around the Ravens fan base community, as not being necessarily the perfect fit for Wink Martindale's system. He was less than a 1-year rental. They acquired him prior to the deadline that year. Think that was the 2020 season, if I'm not mistaken. And boy, does that feel like an afterthought at this point. He is rejuvenated, looks to be playing rejuvenated, I'm sure feeling rejuvenated, and now he has a shot to help bolster this pass rush room.
Sebastian saying I'm speaking from experience. Sebastian, which one was I? Was I like overlooking somebody, or was I being overlooked? I need to know. I need to know. So no, listen, even if teams weren't calling to inquire about signing him off the practice squad, this was going to happen anyway. The Ravens only have, I believe, 3 practice squad elevations. He was going to be on his 3rd. You got to keep him on there. The other thing that's nice, though, is when a veteran like that's on the practice squad, they have a say of whether, they're going to be signed elsewhere. They have a say in that. Whereas if you're not a vested veteran, then you don't have a say. If somebody wants to pluck you, they pluck you. So, Bobby, this story of Yannick's return is nice for a few reasons, some being surprising. Like when he left, it just wasn't on the best note, right? Mm-hmm. And one assumed that maybe he left with bitter feelings towards the Ravens. And that's not it, clearly, because when you listen to him in that locker room on Sunday, he genuinely loves being here. I mean, when the man is saying, I was watching you guys against the Chiefs and I wanted to be there so bad. Life is short. Cherish every moment. Cherish every opportunity. This is a man that has traveled around the league and is probably over it. I want to find a home. I want to stay in a home. And what a better home than to be with the Ravens, who are being debated right now as being the scariest team in, league-wide. So it just goes to show you that just because things don't end exactly on a high note doesn't mean that things can't come back together again. And I'm hoping the same thing happens with Dean Pease, quite frankly, that, it wasn't on the best note, not that they were, harsh feelings or anything, but the defense wasn't at its best. And so hopefully, same type of story that can happen with him. So Bobby, I wanted to look at, since we're talking about pass rushing and why this is important. So over at ESPN, they do a bunch of win rate statistics, and they look through all different guys on the offensive line and the defensive line, both on the edges and on the interior. And they've got lots of different win rates. They have pass rushing win rate and run stopping win rate on the defensive side. And the Ravens, if you look here, have a pass rush win rate, both interior and exterior, at 45%, which ranks 12th in the league. Okay, so that's both interior and exterior and outside, as I said. So 12th, certainly above average, almost a top 10 team. Can Yannick Ngakoue help them to become a top 10 team? And then some. The run stop win rate, not as good, actually. Even though the Ravens have been good at stopping the run. They're at 31%.
So much so entering last week, they're the number 1 ranked rushing defense.
Right. Well, and part of it might be just the quarterbacks that they've faced, right? Which might be why they're looking at a number 31 ranked pass defense, at least going into last week. And they're like, yeah, we'll just keep passing. You know what I mean? So maybe it's just how much people are actually trying to run. But they're ranked 17th, still about average. Okay. About average. Now, if you want to dig in a little bit further, we can blow this up to look a little bit higher. This is only on the edge pass rush win rate. There's nobody on the Ravens interior wise that's that I saw that was in the top 10. No Matabike, no Travis Jones, nothing like that, which was a little bit surprising. Although the guys on the edge may be benefiting because they're double teaming Matabike. All right, so here we go. Kyle Van Noy, number 9 throughout the league, Bobby, in edge pass rush win rate. Okay. Well, this is supposed to be the old man of the team, right? Then look at this. Number 11, Odafe Owe. Baltimore is the only team. Well, excuse me. There's only one other team, Houston, that has 2 guys on this top 20 list. So, not doing terribly, but also has room for improvement. And that's where we're wondering, can Yannick Ngakoue bring it over? Since the Ravens don't have a dominant guy like an Aiden Hutchinson, well, the Lions don't have him anymore either. But if you don't have a dominant guy like Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, you got to look over at Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. There's no dominant guy like that. But if you got 2 guys here who are both in the just outside the top 10, top 9, top 11, if you can get pressure coming up from all sorts of different ways, and then if Zach Orr can use that to his advantage and have a little bit more disguises, well, then we can start cooking. And maybe with Ngakoue, we can start cooking with grease. We do not know yet what his salary is now that he is signed to the 53-man roster. My guess is that it's a veteran minimum contract, Bobby. This is what he was being paid when he was on the practice squad, which is $383,000, which is, I'm sure anybody here would love to make that, but obviously pretty low as far as pass rushers are concerned. If you want to see, I'm a little bit bummed because Spot Rack puts together how much teams pay by position. The only problem is they combine linebackers. So you have inside linebacker and the outside linebackers. But the Ravens are number 9 paying linebacker. And as we know, a big part of that is Roquan Smith. But I'm bringing this up because I want to show you, even though the Ravens are about number 12 with the pass rush win rate, and they got 2 guys that are doing it on the edge, they're getting some bargains here. Kyle Van Noy is only getting 3.6. Odafe Owe is getting 3.6. David Ajabo, 2.1. Let's move down here. Tavius Robinson, just $1 million. And like I said, I imagine Ngakoue won't be much higher than the veteran minimum, so not much more than $1 million. So if the Ravens can enter
deals.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And then Van Noy is EDC got another
top
deal.
5 sack getter right now still after 6 weeks of football. He's a sack and a half off the league lead of Aiden Hutchinson, whose season just unfortunately ended over the weekend. So yeah, a bargain for sure.
Yeah. So with this payroll, if Yannick can get him into the top 10, they're very close right now. That's a bargain of a pass rusher group.
Right. Well, it's a group that we had that conversation earlier in the week related to which group would you want to kind of get a boost to ahead of the November, 4th or what is it? November. It's either 4th or 5th of November, the trade deadline. And my first thought went to pass rush, but we'll see. Kyle Van Noy is playing, continuing to sip from the fountain of youth, and hopefully an Ajabo and/or Owe can continue to stack. They got to stack. Need help from both of those guys. Okay, should we get to some takeaways from John Harbaugh's press conference on Monday?
Yep.
All right. Let's begin with Brandon Stephens, who, of course, has been highly discussed here in recent hours, recent days. And Harbs was asked about him giving up yards. And he said that the Ravens probably play single high man coverage more than most teams, which leaves their corners on an island. And what you transcribed here, quote, "We don't protect our corners at all costs. And opponents have put great wide receivers on Brandon and thrown fades against press man. I think he's held up pretty well. There are plays he'd want to have back, but not too many where I'd say, hey, that's poor technique. Really none. You coach the details with his high leverage, with his leverage on wide receivers, and he's all ears. I feel good about the way Brandon's playing. I think it's been a positive and plus for us. I mean, a major positive and plus. Way to italicize that to emphasize it because
I like the way he said it. He's like,
yeah,
"Oh, it's been a positive and plus," and then another reporter's about to ask him something. He's like, "But I mean a major positive and plus." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm glad you got in the major."
yeah, yeah.
You know?
The knock on Brandon from from many in the fan base, and I think some of this is warranted, is this whole from a technique standpoint, it's the ball awareness. He's so sticky and his coverage is so cloth like.
It's like Velcro. He's
It
right
really
on
is.
his dude. Yeah.
It really is. That when it's not a Keon Coleman big body type, it's so sticky that it doesn't even matter where the ball. It doesn't even matter if he doesn't know where the ball is at times because he's so on top of you. Now, as we saw primetime Sunday night with a bigger body wide receiver in the rookie Keon Coleman, that's where he had some struggles there getting picked on that island that John is referring to here. So
Yeah, no, he's definitely been leaving him on an island. Go ahead, finish your thought.
yeah, no, I think that this guy's coming off a breakout season, and Brandon, he, to John's point, has been tasked with, I mean, goodness gracious, Davante Adams, Keon Coleman. Who do you have this past week?
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase 2 weekends ago. You got Terry McLaurin.
Scary Terry.
So it's been no joke in terms of the assignments that he's drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying he's above critique, no chance. That technique is something that we've all noticed here. When the ball's up in the air, he will lose it at times. But this guy it's admirable the way he's responded to a lot of these tough assignments.
So I pulled up his PFF kind of profile here to see where his grades are, just from their point of view. Now he's been targeted the 9th most throughout the league. But he's allowed only the 12th most receptions. So, slightly better than how much he's being targeted. His overall grade is a 65.3. So you're kind of in that between the yellow and green grades. To put that in perspective, that ranks number 45 throughout PFF's grades of cornerbacks. So not your top 32, but certainly among, among the starting guys. So nothing to super write home about, but it's interesting that because you straight up said, well, technique wise, which is exactly what Harbaugh is the opposite of what Harbaugh is saying. He's saying there really hasn't been too much technique wise that you'd say, hey, he had poor technique. To be a little bit more specific, I think what it is, it's just turning that head, right? It's like the ball skills, because he is right there, and he's right there because he has sound technique. And I wish that there was a follow-up question, but it was a great question that got a really substantive answer. So it was a good question, but some good follow-up questions, 2 follow-up questions could be, well, when would you want to bring over safety help? Because, single high man, you're putting a lot of trust in your corners. So at what point would you do that? Number 1. And number 2, what about the head turning stuff? Is that part of the technique? That would be my follow-up questions. But I do feel like while his play hasn't been stellar, I feel like the criticism has been more than the criticism hasn't matched his play. I feel like the criticism makes him seem even worse than he's been. Not that he's been amazing, but he's solid. He's there. He's always available. Tough, strong. And he had some nice pass breakups, but that is the question. Like, is there a next level of getting him to turn his head so that he can break up those balls or not get called for, PIs?
The other thing is, too, in the grand scheme of things, when you look around the secondary, he's the least of your concerns.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, we're talking about Brandon because it's been volume. You talk about how often he's been picked on and targeted. We're talking about that based on a volume thing. There are a lot of other concerns on the back end of this secondary that I think are more prevalent than what's happening with Brandon. And so, yeah, I like your follow-ups to Harbaugh there in terms of the head turning. There are often times where that ball is in the air. He's got no clue it's even there. But then again, he's lockstep with his assignment. So hopefully he continues to answer the bell. The guy's got a short memory. I'm sure he'd want a couple back, including that first Terry McLaurin touchdown where he got dusted off the line, which put Marcus Williams in no man's land guessing. And then Jaden Daniels did the rest. So
yeah, and like there's just an overall issue with the secondary. And so safeties, Wiggins at times has gotten bit. Marlon's gotten bit, you know what I mean? Like it's been all of them. And so you want to address everything at the same time, but this is more than the Brandon Stevens issue, that's for sure.
Hopefully the secondary will be boosted a little bit when this guy gets back involved. John Harbaugh mentioned yesterday that he is, quote, very hopeful that Arthur Maulet will be back this week, and there's a, quote, good chance he will be. They're going to make a game decision based on how he practices. No update, at least from what we already know about Keaton Mitchell, who obviously is grinding his butt off to get back into this, has been seen on separate fields, jogging and doing light workouts, trying to get back from last year's ACL tear. But with Arthur, this is somebody who was sort of a glue guy, unsung kind of guy last year. As a former Steeler, understands AFC North football, hard-hitting, physical nickel corner. And between him, hopefully within this 21-day activation, because remember, he was that late summer arthroscopic knee surgery candidate, ended up going down. Then a week or two ago, we learned about the soft tissue setback, which is why it wasn't in the initial part of that 21-day window that we saw him back out there, which is looking like it's going to be on the back end of that 21-day window. But hopefully a guy like him, a veteran presence like him, Dean Pease being back involved here to alleviate what's on Zach Orr's plate, can kind of calm down some of the miscues that have happened on the back end here.
And then as for Keaton Mitchell, the Ravens, I mean, he says he's very optimistic and positive. That's nice, but the Ravens have never given us a target date beyond this season. There was the Baltimore Sun report right before the season started that they had kind of targeted maybe around week 6 to come back for practice. How many weeks have we been through the season, Bobby?
We are 6 weeks into the season.
So I'm just going to be watching the next couple weeks. Could he start his 21-day window? Now, again, that is not the Ravens. The Ravens have not said that. That was a single report. So we'll see. We'll see if that's coming up soon.
Hey, Todd, are you ready for another mouth that you have to feed?
Bro. Oh, he's ready. Okay, Bobby. I'm answering that question for him. These are problems offensive coordinators like to have. Or can you even? Maybe that'll take away some of like the Zay stuff, like the Zay. I don't know. You'll still put it in there once in a while, but Zay being closer to the
screen.
Yeah. Like, is there a way to kind of like now you just add Keaton to that mix? You know what I mean? So, yes, he's ready, Bobby. He better be ready. I'm going to be ticked if he's not ready.
The amount that they've been using Zay in the backfield, misdirection stuff, disguise stuff, window dressing, like, man, and a lot of times, even on the opening drive last week, right, with that bubble screen, how refreshing is it to see the screen game being productive to this offense? I mean, we've talked about it. It's not just started to happen. This has been happening.
Was that 52 yards for Zay the other day?
I was going to say, just giving Zay the opportunity to make a guy miss in space with the willing blockers that are on the outside here. That's a lot of fun to watch, and it had that offense humming right prior to that interception on the opening drive. There's no question that if Mark Andrews comes down with that football, they're marching into the end zone for 6, correct? Like, yeah, it just felt like, and that snapped their streak too for opening drive scores. so far this season. But man, they just in scripted format, Todd Monken has been just dicing up defenses right out of the gate.
John Harbaugh was asked about Ben Cleveland's field goal block. He said, "I'm going to take some credit. I've been suggesting that for a while." Okay. He goes on to say that Cleveland recently approached special teams coach Chris Horton and said he wanted to be on the field goal block team. So that's how it all came about. Is Cleveland finally, I guess, went over and approached him and give me more. I want more. They weren't ready for that. They weren't ready for those just that gargantuan human being. So there was that. And then Harbaugh said one of the reasons why they've been kicking touchbacks. By the way, am I the only one? I was promised more exciting kickoffs. If it's not going to be more exciting, can we just go back to the old way? Because I hate looking at these formations. These formations, it throws me off. Nobody's returning anything. So he says that one of the reasons why the Ravens have been kicking touchbacks is because they have 5 or 6 rookies on their kick coverage unit. So he's protecting them a little bit until they get kind of their feet under them. He said the team is still trying to get comfortable with young players on special teams. He also later said that he'd be in favor of moving the touchback like to the 35-yard line, something crazy like that. So I don't know. It's not doing anything for me though, Bobby. Nothing.
Through 6 weeks, I don't know. Can we find anybody that's doing something for? I mean, it's been a failed experiment so far through 6 weeks. I'm happy to see it through for the full season, but I see a lot in the live chat as well. Can we revert back to, last year's rulings when it comes to kickoff? Because they refer to it as a dynamic change or a dynamic kickoff, and it's been anything but. Teams are just there's nothing
doing
there.
nothing. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to something more exciting. What did Tony Romo have to say, Bobby?
Yeah. So Tony, I thought, gave a good breakdown of one, what you need defensively to stop the Ravens, but not just what you need, how you actually have to perform to have a chance, not just to beat. It's not like a clear-cut blueprint. Here's how you beat the Ravens. It's what you need and what you have to do in order to have a fighting chance. Here he is in the CBS booth after calling Ravens Commanders on Sunday.
It's going to be tough. I mean, the only way I see a team slowing them down is a team who has great corners or safeties, somebody who can defend man-to-man without any help, almost as if you're running cover zero all pressure, because you're going to have to allocate resources and personnel near the line of scrimmage, because as soon as you get a guy who can run the ball like Lamar, you always have to bring a guy out of coverage to go help, whether he's the rat player or a safety in the middle of the field. And so when you do that, you leave space for all the receivers. And so there's just no great answer from a math perspective. I would actually say a team who has 1 or 2 corners who are playing at a very high level gives you a chance. But even then, you still got to tackle Derrick Henry. And John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, they know how to get leverage. And it's really difficult when you have 3 options on one play of a running play. It's like a screen, a run, quarterback keep. And it's like, ugh.
You better pack some nasty. I think that's what we take away from trying to slow down this Ravens team.
You got to go tackle him.
Tony
Who
Romo
wants to tackle Derrick Henry? Who wants to tackle Derrick Henry?
It is a tall task and one that was not met.
Right. So you had Brian Baldinger in his Baldy breakdown this week, essentially calling out opponents of Derrick Henry for not wanting to tackle him, especially when they've been worn down late in the game, fourth quarter or the overtime in Cincinnati. Now you've got Tony kind of reiterating that, but then also mentioning just how many different options they could throw at you any given play. If you've got Zay doing misdirection, if you've got Pat Ricard in there, if you've got Derek in the backfield, or maybe Lamar will just pull it. And Keaton's not even been added into this, and we haven't even talked about the tight ends, and then Rashad's on the outside. And so pick your friggin' poison.
Not just pick your poison, but pick your friggin' poison. He's right. Like, we go back and look at the all-22 of the game versus the Commanders. And they were selling out to stop the run. And so they had single man high. And just man-to-man coverage on, you can't do man on Zay. Like
He's gonna
he's
torch you.
this isn't. Look, I don't know. Is they a top 10 wide receiver? I don't know. Maybe not. But I know you can't handle him in man coverage. I know
Well, he's
those
playing like
Commanders
he is one
cornerback.
right now. You know, he's
he
playing like
sure
a top
is.
10 receiver right now,
Well,
and
let's
he's
look
gonna.
up where he ranks, by the way, while we're talking about this. But
Yeah.
where he ranks in receiving yards, it can't be very high because again, the Derrick Henry effect. There were so many games where the Ravens just kept running Derrick until a team like the Commanders came along and said, "Okay, we're going to sell out and put 8 men in the box."
Mm-hmm.
And so you could see it time and time and time again off of that play action, where it would suck in the linebackers, and then all of a sudden you got open guys down the field. And Lamar jokes that he was like, I knew whoever I threw it to, somebody else would come back and say, well, I was open. And he's like, yeah, no fake. Y'all are open. All of y'all are open because of what we're doing down here in the run game and with the play and with the play action off of it. So I think Tony's right. And it'll be interesting, the Commanders don't have a secondary or cornerbacks to write home about. And so it'll be interesting to see if somebody can pull it off. That's why once you hit the playoffs, it's whose superstars are better. Because once you hit the playoffs, you are going to meet a team that has the corners. You're going to find a team that, has the defensive lineman like a Chris Jones that's going to blow things up, as well as the offensive line is playing. Few offensive lines can contain Chris Jones. And so that's what I think he's right. And I'll be interested to see once they come along to a team that has good corners and see how the Ravens react. But
we had a feeling, by the way, that I was just going to mention Zay's numbers. Did you want to
go for
throw
it.
something in there? Okay. So we had a feeling, we had a hunch that he was a top 10 receiver. We were one slot off. He is the 11th in terms of receiving yards, ranked wide receiver right now through 6 weeks. Here are the numbers. 6 games, 33 receptions, 48 targets, 401 receiving yards, an average of 12.2, 1 touchdown, along of 44. You can go on and on and on in terms of these categories. Just to give you an idea who leads the league. So again, Zay is the 11th ranked wide receiver in receiving yards. Nico Collins in Houston leads the way. Just 5 games played, so 1 less than the rest of this group for the most part. 32 receptions, 45 targets, 567 receiving yards, and an average of 17.7 yards per catch.
Where does that rank? Can you sort it by yards per catch?
Say that again?
Can you sort that list by yards per catch?
Yeah, let's see if I can.
That seems pretty good.
Oh, this gets a little skewed just because of the amount of receptions here.
But
Alec Pierce in Indianapolis, he's a wide receiver for the Colts. He's just got 13 receptions on 21 targets, but he's got an average of 28.3. So a little bit skewed there in terms of volume. But yeah, in terms of yards so far through 6 weeks, Zay is flirting with top 10 status.
Love to hear it. Super chat real quick. Rave Kingdom, $5. Thank you very much. He said, with McCary playing left guard and playing better than Voorhees, doesn't that prove John didn't have the best 5 on the O-line? I will say, because listen, I've been criticizing the O-line, and now they've shut me up. I would just say this, maybe, but let's not forget that they were trying to bring along Rosengarten as a rookie right tackle, and Rosengarten's own mentor and former coach said that he hoped that Rosengarten wouldn't be the sole starter from week 1 because he knows that he would develop better. So maybe, but even they were probably saying, well, where do we want the help the most? Let's give it to this guy out on the edge and make sure that he's up to speed. So, but yeah.
Thanks, Rafe.
Leave it there. Thank you, Rafe.
Quick little note here, Sarah. Quick little note on just where we're at right now. We've got over 2,700 of you concurrently watching on this Tuesday afternoon. So thanks for being with us. In the YouTube space, we've got well over 1,100 and just 156 likes. So if you could just take a half second to hit that like button if you're enjoying the content, really helps us out discoverability-wise. Would love to get that number over the 300, 400, 500 range before we finish up in the next 20 minutes or so. But we're about to begin an apology tour, beginning with the facility, correct?
Yeah. So first, this is actually a good transition because Tony Romo's talking about how you stop these guys. Well, the facility started off just talking about how impossible it is. Yet everybody's talking about how impossible it is to defend Lamar and Derrick Henry together. So I started off with that, and towards the end of the clip, that's where they got especially Shady. He was really good. Very genuine apology. So it's a little bit longer, but they were so good this time. We've highlighted the facility over the disrespect, and this time they just couldn't stop gushing over how good this offense is.
All right, so let's do this. We're going to get a little crafty here, just because we want to make sure from a copyright standpoint we are doing things properly. So let's do this, and then this, but then this. And now you guys can enjoy. But why isn't that playing for me? Come on. Come on, play for me.
It went black. Is that supposed to be the way it's supposed to be?
Man, what the heck is going on here? Hold on a second here. Oh, man. Sorry about that, guys. So
the copyright stuff is killing us for sure.
It looks like you may actually have to do this on your end. So why don't you try it?
What am I doing? The screen has gone black. I don't think it's going to work. I need to re-bring it in.
Okay. All right.
So you can do it, but let me bring it in.
Okay.
All right. Here it is.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Right away. Yes, thank you. Okay, so there it is.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And now we're going to go like this.
It's not just that they've won. Y'all realize who they beat. Lamar Jackson said, Josh Allen, sit down. Check. Then Lamar Jackson said, Joe Burrow, sit down. Check. Lamar Jackson said, Jaden Daniels, sit down. Check. I mean, Lamar Jackson done stood him up and said, Dak, sit down. Like Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, everybody stand up and take a seat. Lamar Jackson said, look, y'all gonna have to bow to your boy. Did the Ravens put the league on notice?
Yes, they did. For so many years, even with the MVP Lamar Jackson years, all we talk about is the defense and Lamar Jackson having special, talent. Them days is over with. Defense is not like that like they used to be for Ravens, right? And the best thing about Lamar Jackson, he's doing it himself. I'm going to throw this ball around. I'm going to run this ball around. He looks different. Yeah. This is the first time I can say this, though. Respectfully, he looks like the best player in football.
Yes, he does.
Right?
Yes,
right? Easy, too, though. Yeah. Yo, I don't lie, man. Like, I never thought I could see a better Lamar Jackson. He's been so good. This right here, though, this Lamar Jackson, he'd be the best player in football for a long time.
Lamar Jackson is like that. This is a scary, scary, scary Baltimore Ravens football team right now.
Is it me, though? Or
it ain't you.
More accurate, though? He looked more. He looked even more confident on it.
If Derrick Henry's getting busy, even subconsciously, when you sitting there and you're in your linebacker stance, even subconsciously, you see the play fake, you're like, I don't want to be late. Yeah. Because if I'm late, that gives Shady one extra step, and now Shady won't get off. So if I'm late, I'm like, uh-oh. So as soon as I hear Hut, now I'm downhill. Problem is, if it's a play fake, now what you have to do is this. You have to turn your back and run. They literally coach. They literally coach like you're up. You step at the play fake, and as soon as Chase pulls it, you got to turn your back and start touching. But when you turn, but you can't. Now here's the problem. Coaching point.
Lamar.
You can't turn your back on Lamar.
We're looking at this team as they were 0-2 going into the Dallas game, and we like, man, it's a must win. Yeah. If they don't win, they're going to blow this thing up, and it's Harbaugh. And these boys looking like the best team
smiling.
in
they just need to find their
right now.
Yeah, and they did.
They did. So next week,
week to week league.
They're going to apologize?
Hey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to apologize to the Ravens.
No. So, Lamar. Hey, bro, I apologize.
So, just a couple of things, because it kind of plays off of, like, it is interesting. I've not played football, obviously, but when Acho was explaining the technique of how people are taught on those play actions, they're like, listen, just turn your back and get caught back up, right? Because the play action, it's sucking the linebacker in, and so you're now behind the count, and the receiver is gone. And so you just got to sell out, turn your back, and go catch this receiver that got a half step ahead of you. But, oops, if I turn my back, I may not be able to see if Lamar's taken off from the pocket. And so now you're trying to catch up while also watching Lamar. So I thought that was pretty cool insight on the technique of what's being taught for those linebackers on play action that just can't apply when you've got Lamar and Derrick in the same backfield. And so they're right, though. It it already feels so long ago, Bobby, that the Ravens started 0-2. And what the heck? You signed Derrick Henry and you're not gonna run him, 20, 25 times a game. Like, what'd you sign him for? And trying to figure out how to use him, I formation, like all that kind of stuff. And here we are 4 weeks later, and it's like what they said. Like, it just feels unstoppable in this moment until Tony Romo finds his corners that can help.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think there was a certain level of sincerity, having just listened to that for the first time. Definitely a certain level of sincerity, but I also have a follow-up for Shady, LaShawn McCoy. Where you been, guy? This guy has been, for extended stretches, the best player in the league.
Well, he did. I cut it because I needed to get it short, but he said with Patrick. He's like, I can't play with Patrick. He's like, it's Lamar, but it's also with Patrick. So he's different with like Nick Wright, who Nick Wright has Patrick on a level and then puts Lamar down. He's saying, I'm putting Lamar with Patrick this season. Right there is the best because he was saying his point was he's always been the MVP because he's been the most valuable and he's done the most on his own. He's saying, but now it's another level. It's more than MVP. It's just straight up best player in the league right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The way that I was interpreting it the first time around was like he's finally thinking that, like he's finally looking at him as that for the first time. Was that your understanding of it? Like he's finally viewing
the best,
Lamar
just straight up player, not MVP, because that's what he's saying.
Gotcha.
He's like, this is crazy that he's playing even better, and he's a 2-time MVP, which I think a lot of people are saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then on top of that, you had Luke Kuechly, former NFL linebacker who retired early at his best, like retired at 28. Now he's 33, so he's been out of the league for a while. It was a former Carolina Panther. He went on with Kay Adams. Remember, Lamar turns 28 in January. And I think we've heard something like this before, so maybe it's not all that shocking. But Luke told Kay that he feels like Lamar's just getting into the prime stretch of his career. And when you put that into consideration and you think, wow, he's now a couple of years into this mega deal. He's got 2 MVPs. He's about to break Michael Vick's record for rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history in the next maybe month or so, depending on how he goes. And he's not even 30 yet. And the Ravens could sign him to another mega deal in a couple of years from right now. Like, that's pretty special to think about. And not many teams in the league have that kind of assurance that they have their guy for the foreseeable future. So just putting that into perspective. Thanks to, is it Davenin? What's up, D? How about that? Kingsland, Georgia. Appreciate you for tuning in to us down south. What up, Raven Nation? The offense is cooking with grease and greatest for sure. And James throwing us some love via the super chat donation. And Charlene also saying happiest of birthdays like we did off the top to our friend Tila. We appreciate you guys for being with us. Almost 3,000 concurrents on this Tuesday afternoon. You ready for yours?
Yeah. So in the spirit of apologies, I feel like I owe one to Commanders and a big portion of their fan base. Obviously not all of them, but I had tweeted my takeaways after the game, and I had many takeaways, but my top 2, I think, thinking about it for a day, like yesterday in the show, I felt like I was a little bit off my game, and I think this tweet was weighing on me. And so this is why I just need to get it off my chest. Some of the disrespectful things I said, I think I could have made my points without being condescending. I felt like I was condescending in my first 2 takeaways. I said, still no rivalry here. This was the Commanders' regular season Super Bowl, not the Ravens. Ravens were always in control, respect the Commanders in their start, but this is the heavyweights, and they don't belong on the same level as the Ravens yet. Washington still hasn't beaten a winning team. Then my next line, I said, next takeaway, I said the Jaden Daniels comparisons to Lamar Jackson were premature. He played well and deserves Rookie of the Year honors through 6 weeks, but make no mistake, it's Lamar Jackson who is the reigning MVP. All the pregame talk was cute. So I think the maybe 2 or 3 most disrespectful things, I feel like condescending, was calling it their Super Bowl, saying talk was cute. I also said it on this show. I was definitely, here's what I think I did. And I shouldn't have done this because this happens to Lamar and the Ravens all the time. what I was speaking to was some national media talking points, right? Because we had played them on the show, and they were saying the statements that could be made by the Washington Commanders, that Daniels would be the MVP front runner if he were to outplay Lamar. And they were saying, if they beat the Ravens, then, maybe they're the scariest, all that kind of stuff. And then there was like, oh, Jaden's a better thrower than Lamar, all that kind of stuff. And so what I think I did is I projected what national media were saying, and I projected it onto the Commanders. And I don't think that was fair. Like, as I was writing this, I'm thinking about all those talking points, but it's not like the Commanders were respectful all week. Jaden Daniels said that he didn't want to be compared, right? He said he didn't want to be compared to Lamar. Zach Ertz said the same thing, like, don't put that on him, stop doing it. So they were pushing back against the national media talking points too. And then there was probably a segment of the Commanders fans who for sure were talking trash too, and I definitely had them in my comments. But I can't spread that to the Commanders and project it into the Commanders overall. And I think I could have made my same points without, this was your Super Bowl. I mean, it was a measuring stick for them for sure. And why wouldn't it be? Like, well, if the Ravens were to beat the Chiefs, that's a measuring stick. Being a measuring stick is a compliment. That's not disrespect. So if somebody's saying, if you outduel Lamar, if you guys beat the Ravens, then you're really on the map. That's a compliment to the Ravens. That's not disrespect. And so, all that talk, me calling it cute talk, well, the Commanders weren't saying that. So I wish I had been more surgical in the way I said that. I've gotten a lot of pushback, especially from Commanders fans. But Bobby, we get that all the time. And I don't want to get to the point where I can't take feedback because there's so many trolls out there. You know what I mean? Like, you can get pushed to the point where now you become disrespectful yourself. But I've got to weed through the trolls and actually hear people who are not trolling with their feedback. And I think that I just want to say, the Commanders are on the up and up. I'm sure their fans are very happy after their decades of just heartbreak and getting nothing going. Jaden Daniels is a guy who for sure has my respect. In week 6, there was MVP talk for him. That's pretty cool. And yes, Lamar at the end of the day showed why he's the reigning MVP. And yes, at the end of the day, the Ravens showed that they are still the team to beat. But I have much respect to them, and I wish that I didn't use national talking points and project it on them and become disrespectful. So I started my apology tour last night on Twitter. It will continue, but I also wanted to do it on the show because I also said the same things on the show.
I commend you for the self-reflection, and we love hearing from subscribers and listeners as well via email. And Kimberly Brown, a Commanders fan, wrote us some feedback, which was several paragraphs worth, and so I'm sure you read that as well, and that was a part of this in terms of the reflection. So BaltimoreRavensVault at gmail.com is always how you can reach us in a more formal setting, and that's what Kimberly chose to do. And so I commend you for that. And like you said, it can be sometimes easy to when we're gathering and consuming and compiling all this daily content, it can be easy to sometimes think as if a certain voice, a certain opinion from a national perspective speaks for an entire fan base. And you eloquently just stated why that's not always the case. And maybe that was the case this past week. So
quick hits.
Good stuff. Yeah, let's get to some quick hits because this is much more than a quick hit. I mean, gosh, this was a whole story and conversation for what feels like weeks now. But Davante Adams is going to be a New York Jet here, according to Ian Rappaport. And he will be reuniting with Aaron Rodgers, where he spent a lot of time and had a lot of success with in Green Bay, of course. It's been anything but during his Raiders tenure. And here's what is maybe most interesting, given the conversation that we had surrounding this thought in terms of whether or not it'd be a fit in Baltimore. But the trade condition update, according to Schefter, is that the conditional third-round pick the Jets are trading to the Raiders for Davante Adams, that becomes a second if any of the following bullet points happen. Davante must be first or second team All-Pro and on the active roster for the AFC Championship game or Super Bowl should they make it there. So that is how a third rounder turns into what Vegas has wanted all along, which is a second. Davante's joining the Jets, Sarah. The Jets lost last night to the Bills on Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers is under the microscope. Robert Saleh is no longer the head coach. Nathaniel Hackett has been demoted. And now it's essentially put up or shut up time for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, because this is one of the game's greatest. He is a technician. He's a true wide receiver one. The Ravens found that out, or were reminded of that in week 2. And it looks like he's going to be a New York Jet, potentially suiting up this coming Sunday night.
Well, he got his wish. He wanted to reunite with one of his former quarterbacks. So this will be interesting, because the Jets every few years swing for the fences by bringing in major superstars. But then it doesn't always seem to work out, because the Jets are the Jets. So this will be interesting. Nice little compromise they had, because it was reported that Las Vegas was adamant about a second. So they're like, all right, well, maybe we can get there if Adams is able to help put you guys at the top. And, just watching the Jets, they're kind of an average team, but they make the mistakes that, winning teams don't do. They had 2 field goals that, Bobby, when I say the doink noise has got to be the worst noise for a kicker ever. Sometimes when you hear an alarm that you've woken up to forever, if you randomly hear it in the middle of the day, all of a sudden you have anxiety, it's wait, what's going on here? That doink has got to bring some anxiety to those kickers, but things like that. And, they're just not quite, they're on the edge. So maybe Adams can put them over the top, but I hope he doesn't. Because they're in the conference. And I hope that the Jets are going to jet, even with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams on their team.
I'll tell you what, Rodgers has had his fair share of opportunities in recent weeks. And, there's reasons more so than just him as to why things have taken place so far. 2-4, under 500 through 6 weeks. But when the game was on the line, I know Mike Williams slipped and whatnot, and that led to an interception. But Rodgers hasn't been good enough. I think he'd be the first to tell you that. 23 of 35 last night, 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He was sacked a few times. That offensive line has been inconsistent for him. Just a ridiculous Hail Mary, though. What felt like a 60-yard throw, 70-yard throw at the end of the half. That's his 4th converted Hail Mary in his career. He is just one of one in that category. And this time, Alan Lazard came down with it. That's been another thing that's plagued this team, is drops. Lazard came down with that one. That was a ridiculous play. They got 113 yards on the ground from Breece Hall. So they got weapons all over. It's just for such an unstable, right? Just so much dysfunction has plagued this team for years and years and years. Can Davante come in and fix all of that? Can one player fix all of that with the amount of change and turnover that's taken place with the staff alone just in the last week? Lot of questions, a lot more questions than there are answers in New York, but they just got a whole lot better with Davante getting to them. And 2-4 through 6 weeks are the New York Jets. So that's the latest there.
Hey, Bobby, real quick, sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to say this before the show started, because we were, getting everything ready. I today am the mystery reader in my daughter's 2nd grade class. And I told them I'd come over there as close to 1 o'clock as I can, because we usually try to finish up around that time. Do you mind finishing the quick hit so I can jump up there and surprise my daughter in class?
I don't mind at all.
And be a reader to the class today. I get to read to them for about 10, 15 minutes.
I don't mind at all. Just tell me why you brought this one in, though.
Well, I was bringing up the Jets clanked things, or the Jets kicker hit the crossbar or hit the sidebar twice in that game. And I thought Ramey made a good point last night. I want y'all to remember moments like this in the Jets game whenever you think that we should move on from Justin Tucker after he misses from 61.
I got you. That was related to that. Yep. All right. Well, hey, enjoy.
Thank you.
Good luck.
It's going to be fun.
I know you're going to be locked in.
You know that I act out these little 2nd grade books, right? I will bring the voices. I will do it. I'm going to bring it alive. So
you've always brought the energy in those situations. Man, we should get some video evidence of that, but enjoy it.
All right. Talk to you later. Thanks, Bobby.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, bye.
More quick hits. Appreciate you guys for being with us today. Over 3,000 concurrents And, of course, the slides just left with her. So let me make sure that I get the slides and bring them up here. But, yeah, that Davante move, not much of a surprise. I think we all kind of knew it was either going to be the Jets and the Saints. And then when Derek Carr goes down with the oblique injury, you're like, all right, it's definitely going to be the Jets. And the guy's in win now mode. It was kind of a desperate move, right? I mean, it's obviously a desperate move by a desperate organization that has to be all in right now. There's no guarantee that Aaron Rodgers is even going to be on in the NFL next year. I mean, he could always retire. The guy's 40 years old. A couple more quick hits before we jump. Sheil Kapadia here of The Athletic, just detailing ridiculous Lamar numbers through 6 weeks. He's third in EPA per pass play, which measures efficiency, and eighth in the entire NFL, not among quarterbacks in rushing yards. This guy is a top 10 rusher at quarterback. That's what he's done through 6 weeks. The Ravens are first in offensive DVOA. And as Sheil writes, sounds foolish to say for a guy who has won 2 MVPs, but I think this is the best he's ever played. Derek, of course, deserves some credit there, but we've seen this from Lamar before, and we're continuing to see it again here in year 7 for number 8 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looming on Monday Night Football 6 days from now down in Florida. This was disgusting, and I'm not even going to show the video because it's just heinous. It really is. But tell me you guys have seen the now viral video outside Cross Street Market, right underneath Watershed and Federal Hill, of a guy who I believe has been identified as Jack Callis, a Baltimorean, a Baltimorean maybe because of his actions on Sunday night. It just made me absolutely disgusted to see what this dude did to 2 innocent Commander bystander fans walking down the street in Federal Hill, what appeared to be after dark Sunday night. And Jack, with his buddies filming him from behind, just wallops, knocks out one Commanders fan, goes after his buddy right before, saying things like, I don't lose. Guys in the background saying, we got a straggler. I thought it was absolutely disgusting. A disgusting display of fandom, fake fandom. Guy's wearing a Lamar Jackson jersey, and I think, while I'm not a Ravens fan, I can speak for all of you when I say that guy does not represent Baltimore. He does not represent the Ravens fan base. He doesn't represent football in general. What a joke. He's already been terminated from his job here locally in Baltimore. I'm sure law enforcement will be knocking on his door. Looks like he played lacrosse at Roanoke. He's 6'3", based on the roster measurables, so he's a big body, and got a couple sucker punches landed on these innocent Commander fans, and I thought it was just pathetic. But you know what I was more disgusted by? I was maybe just as disgusted by the guys that were filming him for clout. It's absolutely pathetic. And a terrible, more so than anything else, such a terrible reflection. And it's a fake, right? It's not a real reflection of what Baltimore is, what the Ravens fan base is. Lamar, with that jersey, doesn't represent what Lamar is in any case. You should take that jersey off and never wear it again. That was one of the more pathetic things I've ever seen. Happy birthday to Travis Jones, third-year player, defensive tackle, coming off his first career sack against the Commanders. Really like what this guy's becoming, clogging up the middle part of that defense. Run stuffer specialist. Happy birthday to Travis Jones. Former professional bowler Joe Jenkins. What's up, Joe? People like that piece of you-know-what give Baltimore a bad name. You're not kidding. Does not represent anything. Anything about this city, anything about the fan base. I'm telling you, I'm just getting fired up just thinking about it. Addison, go Ravens. Lamar for Super Bowl MVP. Appreciate you, Addison. Thanks for the super chat donation. Robbie says it was never a competition for Davante Adams. Shaking my head. Yeah, I would think. The Ravens may have checked in on him, but Didn't make a whole lot of sense, especially with what they already have on the roster. Matt says, are there any defensive free agents that you'd want to pick up or defensive players you think we could trade for that would be a big impact? Well, I know Max Crosby wants out of Vegas. I know that. No, I don't know if he wants to actually out, but he deserves to be with a winning organization because he's a winning player. But we'll have that content. We'll have that coming up in the coming weeks as we inch closer and closer to that first week of November trade deadline. Appreciate you, Matt. Dragon Ball Vault says, you see the stat on the Ravens offense being the only team behind the 2011 Saints with Drew Brees and 2013 Broncos with Manning as highest yards per game in history. I have not seen that statistic, but it doesn't surprise me because they're firing on all cylinders. And maybe, just maybe, they'll do what hasn't been done since 1999 when Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk were the MVP and Offensive Players of the Year, respectively, as teammates. Maybe Lamar and Derek have a chance to do that. They certainly are in that conversation through 6 weeks. What's up, Laura? Hey, guys, what about putting Bo Braid in and seeing how he does at safety? I say, why not? Can't hurt. Undrafted rookie out of Maryland. Bo made his NFL debut this past weekend. I think he logged 19 special team snaps, if I'm not mistaken. He's young, inexperienced, newly minted, but he, along with Ardarius Washington, TJ Tampa, can provide some depth if the secondary continues, whether it's Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, to have some issues on the back end, because we've seen that a lot, even if it is just a handful of plays. A handful of plays obviously decide games. And the Ravens got to get their pass defense together ASAP. Appreciate you guys for being here. Rico, thanks for the super chat donation. Thanks to all of you. If you haven't already done so, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. You can join the Patreon group, our Patreon community here on the Vault, for as little as $1.99. It's a great way to support the channel. It's a great way to support what Sarah and I are building here on a daily basis. And we have a pinned comment in the live chat if you'd like to do so. Neil Harold and David Cool, thank you both for believing in what we're building. You guys are one level up from that $1.99 category. And because of that commitment to us, you get a monthly shout out. You guys have been with us for a long time, and we appreciate you both. If you guys are interested in joining the Vault Patreon community, visit patreon.com/Ravens Vault podcast to learn more. Awesome showing today on this Tuesday. Yannick Ngakoue, of course, is on the 53-man Ravens roster. That is what this video was about. We covered a lot of ground in between. We appreciate you guys for being here. Sarah and I, of course, will be back in under 23 hours from right now for a Wednesday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream, and I will be live on the Bobby Baltimore channel side of things coming up later this afternoon, as I always do during the season on weekdays. So with that, appreciate you guys for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll catch up with you on Wednesday, if not before. Thanks for being with us inside the Vault. Like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Do all the good things for us. Layla on the way out. We appreciate you. Love those 11th hour super chat donations. And I see you guys fighting and clawing for future moderator roles for us. Why not? Moderator, editor, intern. We need all those things if we're going to continue to grow this thing. And we have absolutely no plans of stopping anytime soon. So appreciate you guys as always. We'll catch up with you on Wednesday. Hopefully you'll join me later this afternoon for a Bobby Baltimore live stream. And Tila, happy birthday to you, Queen. Appreciate you as always. Catch you guys soon. Later.